Hello and welcome to Lord of the Board. My name is Sam and today we are going to be talking about Root. Root, my favorite game of all time, as you guys probably know by this channel. 75% or so of the content is Root related. So we're just going to do a conversation about Root. And really, I'm just going to be answering some questions. I have some notes here that I wrote down, basically going over the things that I wanted to hit, the things that I wanted to talk about. So I want to talk a little bit about the Homeland Expansion. I want to talk a little bit about what I think we could see in the future coming off of this Homeland Expansion releasing, and then also what factions I could see in the future, which I guess that's kind of like all in the kind of area space of that thought process. But basically, like, what are some of the things that we could be going towards after this expansion? And I don't like to think about, too far ahead. Like, genuinely, I would be totally set for this to be the final expansion to the game. I think that this game has already superseded my expectations of what a game could do. And so to even think about more would be crazy. But here's the thing, I was asking you guys what you guys wanted me to talk about, and it seems that that is a pretty hot topic. So we're going to talk about a couple of things. Let's start off with Root, the Homeland Expansion. So I'm only going to be going off of the last print and play, which is, almost final with a lot of these things. So there are factions that are almost final here. The frogs being basically finalized, like done completely, which is very, very cool. So one of the biggest changes I want to say about the frogs, especially due to the last video that I did with my coverage about them, is that the frog cards actually go inside of the deck and are actually playing a huge role inside of the main deck. I think that's probably the biggest thing I want to just say of like a huge update with the frogs themselves. The other thing is we do actually have a look at the vagabonds. So let's look at some of the current vagabonds. Once again, this is all subject to change, but it's fun to talk about this stuff. So we've got the Gladiator, the Jailer, and the Cheat. And I'll show up a picture of their meeples as well if you haven't seen those. But the Gladiator has an ability where they can flip any item to duel, damage this item, and remove an enemy warrior from your clearing to draw a card, and you do not go hostile. Very interesting. The Jailer starts with 2 torches, which is very curious. It's very, very fun, and a Root T. Once per turn, you may spend a card matching your clearing as a hammer. Score no victory points if you craft an item in this way. And then we've got the Cheat. Nothing crazy about their starting items. Any 2 items, it's called con, quest, ignoring its items. So you can just quest with any 2 items, resolve it, draw a new quest, then shuffle the completed quest into the quest deck once per turn. Very, very interesting. So like kind of quest cycling there. We've also got hirelings. So the hirelings, there are going to be 3 hirelings in the box. We've got the farmers, which is going to be the pink hirelings, which means it's like all these unaffiliated hirelings that like don't kind of mark a specific faction. So these can be played with any factions in the game. We've got 1 for the bats and 1 for the frogs. So the bats, we've got the Sunny Advocates, and then their demoted side would be the Bat Messengers. And then for the frogs, we've got River Roamers and Frog Tinkers, which this artwork's just amazing. And then for the farmers, which honestly I'm most excited for the farmers to play with, we've got the Prosperous Farmers and their demoted side Struggling Farmers, which I think is hilarious. So I want to talk about the farmers really quick, but basically, if no farms are on the map, place 1 farmer warrior and a farm in a clearing with your pieces. Players cannot score any points by removing farms. Already, I think that's a pretty interesting concept. But the first thing, if you rule any farms, you draw 1 card and place 1 farm in the clearing with the fewest warriors and a slot. Battle at a farm or place 1 warrior at each farm. Very, very fun. It's just going to create some utility, some interesting points of interest with these farm tokens, and the farms are looking real cute, nice and yellow, and they have that little farm art. It's just really adorable. Demoted side. Players cannot score any points by removing farms. The nice thing is the farms are still in. You may place a farm and a farmer warrior in a clearing you rule. If you both place a card, draw 1 card. Just a little bit smaller. Okay, so going off of the hirelings, What else are we looking at? Okay, so the maps. Let's talk about the maps. So this is funny. So the Gorge map, if you didn't know, I was the designer of the Gorge map, and they are making some changes to the Gorge map. The major change is that they're adding a river, and it's kind of hard to visualize from this, but if I can find a picture, I will go ahead and show it. But basically, they're adding another river clearing, and I'm assuming this is just to help the Riverfolk Company, maybe just other factions. I know the frogs are also river walkers, so probably just to help those factions. I never found a problem with the 3 rivers, so I'm excited to see this change and see what comes of it. The other thing that they changed was to make it more easier for the badgers. So they removed the bottom dam, essentially. So they kept the top dam, but they removed the bottom dam. So that is also interesting. So that's going to make it to where there's actually the correct amount of, basically you have 3 clearings surrounding each forest in this version, which it's a good change. When I was designing the map, the badgers did not exist. The marsh map is still coming up with no artwork. Neither of these have any official artwork, but I like the concept of these, where you're going to basically be having certain tokens that will cover up certain spaces that adjusts it for certain player counts, and then with a full game you don't play with any of those, so it actually is a bigger, larger map for everyone to play on. What else do we got here? Squires and Disciples deck. So first off, this artwork's just phenomenal. Kyle Farron once again just blows it out of the park. I mean, look at this stuff. So each of the decks kind of has deck identity, I would say. For example, there's also like the first deck had the favor cards. The 3 favor cards are 1 of each suit. They're all the same, but depending on the suit. And then Exiles and Partisans had the Partisans. Well, this is Squires and Disciples. So this one has Squires, but they also have Friends of. So let's talk about these Squires. So there's 1 for each suit. Fox Squires. Once in daylight, you may spend this or a Fox card to battle in or move from a Fox clearing. So Rabbit Squires would be the exact same, just sub Fox with Rabbit, and Mouse as well. And then also the Friend of the Foxes, which there is also Friend of the Rabbits, Friend of the Mice. Once per turn, you may spend or reveal 1 Fox card, even an ambush card, as another suit, even Bird. You cannot craft other friend cards, so you can only be friend of 1 color at a time. A lot of these cards in this deck have weird ways of removal. This deck, in my opinion, is, I think, going to be one of the most player... Every time I've played with it, it feels like this deck is going to reward players that are good at the game. So I am very excited to see this deck get played more. It is, what I love most about it is that it's very different from the other 2 decks. Like, this is not going to be, for those people that just love the Exiles and Partisans, they think it's like godsend, like this is the best thing ever. What I love about this deck is that it's very, very different from that. So you might still find reasons to play the Exiles and Partisans deck. I think personally, right now, at the moment, I actually prefer this deck to the Exiles and Partisans deck, so I am very curious to see which deck we end up rotating more, or if we just kind of random draw it. I'm very excited. This deck is extremely interesting, has a lot of very unique effects that have unique ways of leaving the pool of cards and coming back. I love that. So yeah, the deck is going swimmingly, and the artwork is just incredible, man. Look at this raiding party. Stop. It is just amazing. It's so good. So let's see here. I think we talked about the main things. I want to talk a little bit about the hirelings, a little bit about the current vagabonds, a little bit about the deck. So let's move on to a little bit of like what I think could be coming in the future of Root. And not because I'm like already waiting for this. Once again, I think it's very early to be talking about this stuff, but people want to talk about it, so I want to talk about it as well. So what could we see in the future? So these are a couple of things that I think we could see in the future of Root. And I'm not saying like these are the things that I'm like so determined to see happen. I think that the game could be done here. Genuinely, I think that we've got everything that we need. But the things that we could see in the future, the first one, I think, is a Root campaign mode. I don't know how they would do it. They would have to work out some things, but maybe like a kind of a smaller box expansion that allows you to add campaign rules to your games of Root, where you kind of string multiple games together. I've thought about this idea of like, you add like a tint of that Oath campaign or that Arcs campaign to the Root universe. You've got so much stuff there. Maybe some, like the landmarks can kind of carry through certain games, be removed. You could have like, a certain number of games, and then whoever has scored the most victory points within that time period wins. There's so many ways they could go about it. This is just something that I thought of. What would it look like to create a Root campaign mode? The other one that I thought of was a tournament play kit, where they basically give you certain tournament rules, certain cards that have rule adjustments for certain factions. So they might do something similar to that of Despot Infamy for the Vagabond, or some small buffs for the Lizard Cult, or the Marquise de Cat. Maybe some small nerfs for the Duchy. Just like some little cards and stuff like that would be really, really interesting. So like a tournament play kit, I could see that happening in the future after this. What factions could we see in the future? Well, I think this one's a kind of a silly question, because obviously they could go anywhere from here. But some thoughts that I had, some things that I was thinking of, was maybe 2 or 3 pawn factions. That's something that I've been playing around with some of the fan factions that I have made. I've made some, working on some like 3 pawn factions specifically. But here's my thoughts. 2 or 3 pawn factions, I would say thematically you could do a 2 pawn faction, almost like the Hound and Arya Stark, where they have very like different rule sets, and using them, you're kind of like a 2-piece. Maybe it is like an alternate Vagabond class. Like, I know that we're already getting the Knaves of the Deep Wood, but you could go in a direction that's like just 2 pawns, which I think would be kind of cool. Or 3 pawns, like a Coven of Witches, which is kind of where I was kind of going with my personal fan faction that I was working on. I like the idea of having less pieces, especially to fill in those larger player counts. These would be really helpful to have alternate factions with less pieces. So for like the Marsh map, if you're doing a full 6-player game, to kind of make it a little bit easier to parse all the different factions. This was another thought that I had, which was, what would it look like to have the Woodland Alliance faction have broken up into different sects? So for example, a branch of the Woodland going rogue, like the rabbits, the fox, or the mice. So you can make a faction specifically tailored to one of those, like a union of sorts. Maybe they're rising up. Maybe they don't agree with particularly the way that the Woodland Alliance is doing it. There could be some interesting dynamics there. I think to have an idea like that, I think that would be very, very fun. The other one I had was an Ura type faction. So a faction that maybe they don't have a lot of presence on the board, or maybe they do, but they have this way of fortifying other player pieces with their abilities. And we're kind of getting a little dabble into this with the bats, which is very, very cool. The new bats are very interesting in this. But my thought process is like, maybe they could fortify buildings by placing a token under them, kind of giving buildings armor. Or maybe they can give all these Ura bonuses to everyone in a clearing, like draw an extra card at the end of your turn, or you flip it to use a crafting piece. So like a faction that is tailored to helping the other factions only. And that is how they score points when the other players maybe partake. Almost like a spin, just like a weird river folk friendly faction, but mostly only friendly. But obviously it's Root, so you're going to have them be a little bit rude too. It's already rude to be like teasing like an ability. It's like, oh, just use it and give me victory points, Last point I put on here, and this is absolutely psycho. Like, this is not something that really would work for Root, but just to throw some ideas to the wall. This game's always given me a little bit of Dune vibes, and to have the Bene Gesserit be a faction in a way, and by that I mean have a faction that's like, okay, I need to win alongside this other faction. I think that they're going to win, and if they win, then this faction wins as well, kind of deal, but they're secretly doing that, they're secretly making that work. I don't think it would really work in the terms of Root, but I had it written down here because I just thought it might bring up some ideas. And here's a thought. What are some of the ideas that you guys have of future factions, future content that you could see happening in Root? definitely comment down below. I want to hear all of those thoughts, because these are just some of the ideas that I, have been thinking about, have been considering on what it could look like with more Root content. Let's now, kind of in closing, talk about Root as a whole, and some of the things that people are asking for. So one of the biggest things that people are asking for, based on Root content from me, per my poll, it wasn't a real poll, which is why I did quotation marks. It was more of a question of like what you guys want to see for Root content the most. And I want to, once again, with this video, say if you guys have content that you want to see that's based on Root, comment on this video as well. I'm gathering all of your guys' thoughts in kind of a booklet, and I'm just going to be kind of looking it over and seeing what I can do realistically. Overwhelmingly, people want in-person playthroughs. So if you didn't know, I did a Halloween kind of special special video where I had my friends come and we played Root, and it was a blast. And honestly, with everybody wanting more of that, it makes me, for one, very, very happy that you guys love my friends, you guys love that kind of content, you love the banter and the yelling that we do. But also, one thing that I am very proud of, just to, shout out all my friends, is that they played the game right. They know the game, which is what I'm so proud of, and they also love the game. They realize why Root is great, and that was one of the things that we wanted to show on the camera, is that there are ways to do playthroughs without a ton of role mistakes when you've had players that are very, very accustomed to the game and its factions. This was even with new factions that we had learned, so I'm just so proud that people are excited about it. And with that being said, we are working on more live Root playthroughs. So that is something that with this new space, with this new home, we are able to actually have the capacity to do that. I'm working on getting an overhead camera that will be better so that you can actually see what's going on more so throughout the game. So that will be kind of the next goal. And I'm not sure how we're going to do that. I might do some sort of like a rally to try and get some funds for another camera, because that will definitely speed up the process. Because what I don't like is I don't like putting out videos that are not the quality that I would like. And personally, the overhead camera was just my smartphone, and that is not the quality that I like to see. I want my videos to be of higher quality, just because that's just my personal thing. Like, that's just what I want to do. So we might see some more stuff on that, but I will say, it is going to happen, more playthroughs. Another video in here that somebody was asking for is, what hirelings are your favorite to play? And it actually is shocking that I have not discussed hirelings. That's crazy to me. Like, what in the world? How have I not done this? So I have plans to do 2 videos, actually. We're going to be doing a hireling video and a landmark video. I think that that is fair. We need to talk about these other aspects of the game that I just somehow have missed in Root. So besides those things, though, what are some things that you guys would like to see in the future for Root content? This was just a fun video where I got to talk a little bit about Root. What is some of the stuff that's been finalized? And also, what could possibly be coming after this. I'm just so excited for Root. I love this game so much. I love everything that it stands for. And also, I've been enjoying Ahoy. I've been enjoying a lot of things right now that are a leader, of course. And yeah, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. I don't really know what place this video fits, but I still think that you guys would appreciate it. So glad I came on here. Glad I was able to talk to you. Definitely comment down below. I want to see your guys' thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you next time. Let's go ahead and drop the beat.